Every hour, new rumors, leaks, and think pieces are popping up about what really went down in that bizarre Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. You know, one where American soldiers on their knees literally rolled out the red carpet for dictator and war criminal. Yeah, you saw it, we saw it. And if you're waking up somewhere in the US right now, grab your coffee. I'm Maria Drutska, and on your way to work, I will give you the quick rundown of what happened overnight in Ukraine this morning, plus a taste of yesterday's statements from some prominent figures ahead of today's big talks at the White House. While Zelensky is in Washington, Russia decided to make its own grand gesture at 5 a.m. Ballistic missiles and kamikaze drones raining down on Kharkiv, Sumy, Zaporizhia, Odessa. In Kharkiv alone, a missile hit an apartment block. 7 people so far known to be killed, including 1.5-year-old child, and 20 or more wounded, with more missing. Here's the images: Kharkiv, Sumy, Odessa, Zaporizhia. And don't be fooled, these weren't random attacks. This was deliberate and timed perfectly to showcase Putin's triumph in Alaska, to humiliate everyone else working toward peace and squeeze Ukraine into accepting his conditions. Conditions that basically mean surrendering territory and much, much more, and I will speak about it further. And just when you think it can't get worse, Trump, right before Zelensky's plane even landed in Washington, posted that Ukraine and Zelensky simply don't want peace. According to him, the war could end immediately if only Zelensky wanted it. Yes, the classic victim-blaming playbook. That already sets a less than ideal tone for the negotiations happening in the White House. Trump claims Kiev can stop the shellings of its cities right now if Ukraine give up Crimea and NATO membership aspirations, because rewarding an invader and throwing away your security, that of course means peace. But the real question remains: even if Ukraine were to accept this, would there be any meaningful security guarantees? Something resembling Article 5. Spoiler alert, no one is saying so. Fox News, with unnamed European diplomats, said that Trump is backing Putin proposals, total Russian control over Donbass and frozen front lines, as supposed foundation for future deal. Sounds like a deal only Putin could love. And again, nobody is talking about guarantees, because promising anything with Russia is a joke. We have all seen such Moscow respects, agreements and so on, and as Putin also respects international law. Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski put it perfectly: Ukraine already has guarantees of independence and border integrity, including from Russia, since 1994. In fact, Putin himself ratified the Russia-Ukraine border treaty in 2004. Just respect those and the war is over. Simple, right? So back to the meeting, Trump-Zelensky. Outlets report that British diplomats have been coaching Zelensky for his sit-down at the White House. Their advice: praise him, don't provoke him. Axios report that the White House actually asked Ukrainian officials whether Zelensky would be wearing a suit to today's meeting with Trump. One of Trump's advisors even said, if Zelensky shows up today in a suit and tie, that would be a sign of peace, but we don't expect him to wear one. According to the media outlet, Zelensky expected to appear in the same black jacket he wore at the NATO summit in the Netherlands back in June. Honestly, if only the White House worried this much about things that actually bring peace, like, putting pressure on Putin instead of obsessing over Zelensky's wardrobe. Or at very least, maybe stop making US soldiers kneel down to fix a red carpet for a Russian war criminal and dictator. Anyway, By the way, the European star murmurs Macron, Meloni, von der Leyen, NATO Secretary General Rutte, and Finland's presidents too, will only be admitted to the Oval Office after about an hour of one-on-one talks between Trump and Zelensky. Presumably so no one interferes while Trump pressures Zelensky to accept Putin's conditions. We'll see. And speaking of conditions, Reuters reported yesterday that during his meeting with Trump in Alaska, Russian dictator Putin laid out a whole list of demands for ending the war against Ukraine. Spoiler, none of them involve actually stopping the war. According to the report, Putin's offer excludes a ceasefire until a peace deal is signed. Here's what he wants. Ukraine must fully withdraw troops from Donetsk and Luhansk regions in exchange for Russia freezing the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia regions. Russia would generously hand back a few scraps of territory in Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Putin also demands recognition of occupied Crimea as Russia. And of course, he wants sanctions lifted at least partially. He also wants Ukraine to give up NATO membership aspirations, but apparently Putin was open to Ukraine receiving some kind of security guarantees. I would love if from him there's like a fox promising to guard the hen house, Another Kremlin demand: official status for the Russian language in some parts of Ukraine, or maybe nationwide, plus free reign for the Russian Orthodox Church. That church that's basically an FSB clubhouse where priests peddled headline Kremlin propaganda, brainwashing parishioners with Ruski Mir. By the way, I did a deep dive video on the Russian Orthodox Church about 2 years ago. I will leave the link in the description if you want a refresher. And finally, the Trump-Putin meeting made quite the impression on the Russian forces. Propaganda outlet RT Russia Today is now circulating a video of a captured American BMP supposedly assaulting Ukraine's position with both Russian and American flags on it. Yes, seriously, not AI. That's propaganda on the next level. I bet even Dmitry Medvedev nearly choked on his vodka when he saw it. Next time maybe they will slap a NATO flag on it too, and boom, instant collective breakdown across all Russia. Anyway, while you've been watching this video, the negotiations in Washington already underway. Maybe even finished. The interesting part will be comparing what was promised or spoke about before and what actually comes out after. But one thing is clear: if there is no any off deal, a core has to be real security guarantees, not just empty declarations, something like NATO Article 5, not Budapest Memorandum 2.0. History has shown every so-called agreement signed with Russia is worthless without enforcement. The West must not only declare Ukraine's border untouchable, but also be ready to act decisively if Russia strikes again, if you know what I mean. And even more importantly, give Ukraine the tools to defend itself, which means weapon supply cannot stop. It must grow. The era of wiped out peace is over. We are in era of wars and militarization now. So stock up on missiles, or at least popcorn, and let that emergency suitcase warm your soul in the corner. That's it for today, and I want to thank all of you for supporting Ukraine, watching Ukrainian content. Please like this video. This will help Ukrainian content and truths to be seen by more people. You can support the channel's development on Patreon and buy me a coffee. The empire will fall. See you soon, and Slava Ukraini!